Welcome to The Rundown, where we take you right into the action with the latest sports news, updates, game previews, breakdown, and analysis in, around, across, and beyond the Ateneo. And now, let's get ready to run down!
All right, what is up, Blue Eagle Nation? Thank you again for tuning in to us only here at Radyo Katipunan 87.9. As always, you're hanging out with me, Anthony. And joining us after a long absence is the girl with all the gifts. She writes, she sings, she hoops. And there she is back again with us. It's SDD, Selina De Dios. Team captain. Team captain of your Ateneo Lady Eagles. What is up?
Thanks for having me. It's been a while, but I'm glad to be back.
Definitely. So wait, I kind of so the news hit me that okay, Selena, team captain. Like how time flies. The first time we were chatting on air, you were coming off your injury, pa, diba?
Yeah.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
3 years later, ba? You're La Capitana of the Lady Eagles. How is that?
Honestly, it's insane. It's kind of hard to believe I'm actually graduating this year, and parang everything. I feel like in a blink of an eye, it's come kind of so far. But yeah, it's a really humbling experience, and I'm really excited because we've kind of entered some uncharted times, and
Definitely.
so this is gonna really test our team, and not just our team, but pretty much everyone participating in UAAP. So I think the best athletes will really grow from this, and so I'm excited to take it head on.
Senior leader Selena De Dios. Imagine that. Pero Sel, no, I know it's hard to gather your team around, diba? Especially kahit na it's GCQ, we still have to
Yeah.
maintain social distancing and every health regulation out there. Pero what's on top of your list as team captain in your senior season?
Well, right now it's just making sure that everyone on the team feels supported, especially with so many things going on. Some things have to take a back seat, and while we want to keep pushing the girls to stay fit, stay healthy, and keep training, keep playing. The first and foremost, we want them to be mentally okay, and so that's really the top of the priority. And I think I've really been lucky to be surrounded by like the coaching staff and a co-captain in Zoe Chu, who has that same priority. And so far, I think we've been doing all right as a team.
That's good. That's good to hear. No, parang like there are limitations again that we have to accept that you can't physically train. You can't go up and shoot some shots anytime. Pero,
Exactly.
diba? It's what's up here that matters. It's how
For
you
sure.
it's how you remain calm yet focused, diba?
For
With
sure,
everything
for
that's
sure.
going on. Oh. So, Sel, again, for this afternoon, I know there's a lot of basketball going on with the Orlando bubble in the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, the news this morning just shocked me that Giannis Antetokounmpo is now gone down 3-0. Imagine that. The
Yeah.
Bucks almost eliminated in the semis. Pero, okay, so there's ever since the Orlando bubble restarted, it's been a whole new game, hashtag whole new game. Pero there's a much bigger ball game happening outside the bubble because
Yeah.
just a couple of weeks ago, the NBA caught the world's attention once again with I think one of the most powerful displays of not really protest, but again just speaking out and standing
Yeah.
up for what's right. Diba? So the NBAs they elected to sit out a couple of Wednesdays ago.
Yes.
The playoff games that day. So the players led the protest of the police shooting of Jacob Blake. And Selena, this just set off a chain reaction like no other amidst global sports. Like, wow, what was your initial take on this?
Well, when I heard the news, I had to verify because like, there's no way they're gonna do that. Because when you're talking about professional sports, there are a lot of people you have to please, and so sometimes players wouldn't really necessarily take that risk of sitting out the game because they might upset the higher ups. And so I had to verify, and I'm like, oh wait, it's not just one team; it's like a few teams deciding to opt out. And then after I scroll through my Twitter, and then I find out that it's not just the NBA. I think the WNBA followed and MLB, if I'm not mistaken. And there were like a few other sports leagues who just decided to, come together and use it as a sign of protest.
True, true. Parang there's contention between terms of how you call it. Parang some call it, oh, it's a boycott. Some call it a strike. But
Yeah.
it's more than, kasi parang you're limiting it to a labor dispute. But
Yeah,
it's not.
exactly.
It's more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If you say boycott or strike, it is a labor dispute. You kind of make it that makes the problem smaller than it is because it feels like they're directing their anger towards the NBA or the organization, but it's really not that. So I'd probably say this is a form of protest.
Definitely, definitely. And Selma, when we were talking about all of these negative occurrences, police violence, racial injustice, social inequality, you kind of feel that in this time of pandemic, like it has magnified all these underlying problems that we have in society. And like for you, what made this or whole Orlando bubble by the NBA like the perfect stage for players, like to communicate about what they think about these issues?
I think it became the perfect stage because all eyes were on it. It was, for me, I felt that it was the first major sporting event that really kind of pioneered that whole idea of the bubble. And so they set the pace and they already had that kind of exposure. And so everyone was really, it was all eyes on them. And I think that's why they kind of use that opportunity as a time to come together. And pre-pandemic when there were actually a lot more things going on as well. But for some reason, everyone being at home, all the issues are getting unearthed.
Yeah.
And with people having the opportunity to kind of take a step back and not live their daily lives, that's when their eyes are open to other things. And I think that's how, all these underlying issues came about.
Well said, well said. And it's not only the power of the message that they're trying to convey out there, but it's also their delivery of the message, the medium in which they wanted to deliver the message. And like for me, when I was going through the actual event, what really struck me was some WNBA stars. So they entered the arena with the initials of, they were wearing plain white tees, and then the initials of Jacob Blake were on their shirts. And at the back of their shirts were 7 bullet holes. And then they all just came together, hosted a candlelight vigil for all victims of police brutality and whatnot. Pero if I know you agree with this, if someone knows what it means to prove a point, it's gotta be women hoopers. You know that.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure, and that was a really powerful thing that they did. It's kind of one thing to play it safe. I mean, protesting in itself is not a safe thing. Standing up against what you believe in rather is a dangerous thing, especially in some places more than others. But for them to go that bold because it means that much more to them is really inspiring. And you're right, the WNBA for the longest time they've been doing their part, and it just doesn't go as noticed as the counter league. But I also know that they one of the WNBA teams, Atlanta Dream, I think, they protested because one of their co-owners supported, or rather didn't support the BLM, NBA's adoption of the BLM, kind of protesting. And so they actually spoke against the co-owner of the team. I think it was the Atlanta Dream.
Wow.
And things like that, it's so easy for them to come under fire. And yet they still did it because that's what they believed in.
Some brave young girls. But
Yeah.
so I wanna ask you on this. No, I know NBA players they have free reign of slogans they put on the backs of their jerseys. So you have Black Lives Matter, equality, whatever. Danny Green, who's been missing lots of shots, his slogan says, "How many more?" Well, that's how many more misses that you gotta miss. But okay, apart from number 5, De Dios, what would be the message printed on the back of your jersey?
Ooh. Ooh. I think from all of the options presented, if I was to say in the NBA bubble,
Okay.
I I feel like I'd probably go for equality.
Nice.
I think that's really just the biggest message, beyond everything. It's really that regardless of your ethnicity, the color of your skin, your beliefs, we're all human, and everyone should deserve the same rights just because we're on an equal playing field.
True. And the pandemic again, it has revealed lots of inequalities, lots of differences. Pero at the very heart of it, we're all one human fraternity, so to speak. Kasi
Yeah.
we're all suffering through this, and the only way we're gonna get past this is by building bridges, being together,
Sure,
being
of
together to
course.
resolve it. Now going back to this event, now, Sel, a lot of the wave that the NBA has generated is because if you compare the NBA to other North American sports leagues, there are several reasons why it really stands out. When NBA players deliver a message, it really stands out. And I'm going through a CNN article, and the first reason that they specified was the whole sport of basketball in general. It has more African American, it has more black representation than, let's say, for example, I'm a fan of the NFL. Your quarterback generally is always going to be Caucasian American. The MLB, it's there are more Latinos, there are more Caucasian Americans involved. But when you say the NBA, it's I know it's a haven of African American culture. Like, diba, you get the feeling where basketball is inherent. It has a coolness to it. Parang it's a culture, it's a lifestyle in itself. Like, you have Michael B. Jordan on NBA 2K, Jay-Z and Beyonce, they previously part owners of the Brooklyn Nets. And then, like, a great one guy whom we have to give tribute to, Chad Boseman. He was a huge friend to many NBA players. Like, you get that feeling that the NBA is in fact like sort of a safe space for African Americans to collaborate, diba?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why it also makes it probably the most powerful place for protests like this, like the league that could probably make the most waves. I actually had a chance to speak to Chris Newsom when I wrote an article for the Guidon about.
Shout out to my classmate.
It was actually about why athletes should be using their platform to speak up about issues bigger than sports. And
Yes.
he mentioned something that when he steps into the court, being an African American, people see the talent. They see him as a star, like a great basketball player.
Yeah.
But the moment that he leaves the court, people see him for the color of his skin. And while those who watch the NBA, and it's a mix of races. You have Caucasian Americans, you have obviously people here in the Philippines. It's a global sport, and when they see icons playing the sport that they love, it's all praise, it's all glorification on the court. But
Yeah.
the moment that it leaves the arena, rather, it's like all is forgotten. And I think that's why it's finally important for these players to take a stand, because I think if anything, it's most applicable to them.
Yeah, right. Well said about that, Sel. And also, no, touching off on what you just mentioned. Okay, again, basketball. It's a celebration of hip hop culture, African American culture. But at the same time, like, if you go through these players, diba? Parang before they reach their celebrity status, they themselves, are sort of the success stories from their hard knock upbringing, diba? Parang most of them come from, underprivileged backgrounds, and basketball was their meal ticket. Basketball was their way out, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so, hearing the stories of the athletes who themselves have gone through it, that's what makes it all the more powerful. They don't speak from, like, they don't have a bird's eye view of it. They're not like an omniscient viewer of it. It's
Yeah.
they lived it. And I actually saw one NBA player. I don't recall who anymore. He tweeted that he had an experience. He was on the way to a game, I think, and he got pulled over. And then he pulled out his ID, and it just so happened it was from his team.
Right.
And that's the only reason that they let him go. And he said that other people wouldn't be as lucky, right? Because obviously they don't have the same name value. And stories like that is just like heartbreaking.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. I'll go through some instances similar to what you just mentioned. No, similar instances of NBA players. NBA players, despite their celebrity status, despite their fame, um, they're still subjects of racial profiling. For example, Sterling Brown of the Milwaukee Bucks was tackled to the ground and tasered by police because his car was straddling two handicapped parking spaces. Exhibit B. Mo Harkless was pulled over and verbally abused for no reason by an officer who only stopped his tirade when he realized who Harkless was and then tried to be friendly with him.
I think that's the same story I heard. Yeah.
Right. One more. Masai Ujiri, the GM of the Toronto Raptors, was grabbed, shoved, verbally abused by a sheriff's deputy when he attempted to celebrate with his team after they won the NBA championship last season. Drew Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans had driven to where his wife had been pulled over for no apparent reason, was immediately handcuffed despite calmly approaching the officers with his and his wife's licenses already visible. Now, just going through all of these instances, like, I know we're trying to analyze this from an outsider's point of view, but if you can't help but, diba, parang we just feel so sad that, like, if you were in their position, diba, it would be parang you wouldn't understand why is this still happening to me.
Yeah, I think once you're exposed to so many stories, for a while you're so far from it. When you're living here in the Philippines and it's happening mostly in the States, and you don't understand the gravity of it, you don't really realize how common it occurs. But after that, they're like, how can people have hope, especially if already these like famous players, these very known celebrities are already the ones getting targeted. What more, the little girl or boy who doesn't have the same name value or face value, and you know I couldn't even imagine being in their shoes.
True, true, and it's a sad reality that I don't want to say that we just have to accept. No, it's a sad reality. It has to change. It really has
Yeah.
to change. And I'm sure I know because this is being highlighted because it's in the States, it's in the NBA,
Mhm.
but like across the globe, like be it in Europe or anywhere else, I'm pretty sure like similar instances have happened.
Yeah,
And
I don't doubt that, but yeah, I guess again, the US being, the US, it's really all eyes on them.
true,
And that's both a good thing and a bad thing, I guess.
yeah,
The good thing being that they have the potential now to, I guess, speak up and set precedents for everything else that happens in the world. But
right,
maybe the bad thing could be that other areas of the world where it does happen, it's not as big of a focus. But I
right,
think I think hopefully there will be ways that more light will be shed on the other places.
great, great. All right, so going on to reason number two, Selena. All right, it's the players. The players know their star power, which means when LeBron talks, NBA players listen. When Chris Paul, the president of the Players Union, talks, they listen. And part of part of the reason why is, I know you're a hooper. I mean, basketball kasi it tends, I know it's a team sport, but it tends to put more focus on individuals as stars rather than whole teams. And I- in one in somehow that's sort of a good thing, especially when you're talking about how social issues come to the surface, because once NBA players see like a star of the magnitude of LeBron consult Barack Obama about something like this, you know that it's serious, diba?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing that some stars are used as like the beacon of hope. You know, when you're in a team, as much as you want to be all in one, have one belief as a team, it's not always the case. And so I think that's the positive side of having these stars, these icons, people like LeBron James, who what he says pretty much goes.
Yeah.
And the perfect example of that is Jamal Murray's interview.
Yeah.
He was singled out after that performance. He played well that game, and on his shoes were Breonna Taylor
Yeah.
and George Floyd. Yeah, and that was really powerful. And even though he was a single voice, he still had the power to create that kind of impact. And so that's why I also think it's important that maybe one person at a time, or like a spokesperson, takes a stand, because it makes the message more clear, rather than drowning out the sounds when too many people are trying to interject, and it kind of gets lost in the conversation.
True, true. And good point about Jamal Murray bringing this up. No, actually in his interview, parang Jamal Murray said that, you know what, we're not afraid to even go to the brink of shutting our sport down in the middle of the playoffs. We are taking the just how, in your words, Alina, how brave is this decision of theirs to say, you know what, screw it. There's something bigger than basketball.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful, because it could have fallen victim to being like performance activism, with coming out with those shirts, or like taking a knee, or even the slogan in behind the jersey.
Yeah.
It could come out as like performance activism. They're just doing it to not land in hot waters with their fans, and but when he said that, he said, we are willing to sit out, risk our careers. Then that kind of took it to the next level. It made it a lot more serious.
Right, right. And Sel, we've talked about this guy's career like few months ago, but when the NBA was at the brink of closing once again, the guy who steps in is the greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan, convincing Chris Paul in the Players Union, you know what? Continue to play basketball. And I think that's the best option that they had to do. Because if you canceled everything, it I don't know, kasi parang basketball is their best way of voicing out, their stance on these issues. Kasi playing is their talent, and you let your talent speak for something that you totally believe in, right?
Yeah, I definitely think it could have gone either way. They could have continued in the bubble, and the negative thing about the bubble is it might take away the attention from what's happening
Pwede.
around the world, which is why it could have could have gone down that route. But I'm glad that it didn't, and it turned out to be probably one of the best decisions. Now athletes have a stage, they have a platform to speak out, and I'm glad that some athletes are actually using it to make whatever statement they feel, whatever statement they believe in.
True, true.
Yeah.
And all right, so players have done their fair share of again taking a stand, making very very bold statements, making very brave decisions. But again, also, so moving on to reason number 3 is the NBA is what it is as a league, because you start from the top. Adam Silver allows these discussions to flow, diba? It's not like, hey, I'm the commissioner, I'm limiting your speech on this issue. Parang we as a league don't stand for this. No, like Adam Silver as a commissioner is allowing discourse to happen, and it's such a good thing for the league as a, but it's a global entity kasi, and that message na okay, now we're open to hearing new ideas, we're open to hearing players' voices. That's a good standard for other leagues to follow, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it really does start at the top, because as much as players want to make a difference or take a stand, they're ultimately still under, the jurisdiction of the commissioner. And so for him to be encouraging that, yeah, not just allowing it but actually encouraging it, and even initiating it with the players is huge. And I think it's something that other leagues should definitely look at, sparking those kinds of conversations, because we're not separate from it. We don't, just because they're playing in a isolated location doesn't mean they're isolated from the issues itself. And so I think it's really important that he's doing that.
Right, right. And of course, the community that has been in the spotlight is, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks' own community back in Wisconsin. So Kenosha now is under, their business leaders, their politicians. They're now under pressure to, hey, we got to make substantial changes in our, in legislation and in our society. Pero so the owners collectively, the NBA owners, they've pledged over $300 million, which is not a small amount, over the next 10 years to a foundation that would create economic opportunity and empowerment for the black community. Pero there's a feeling among the players na, you know what, it's not quite enough. $300 million is not quite enough to convince them that actual change can happen. You kind of sense that from them.
I think something like giving money can sometimes be seen as a band-aid solution. You're not really addressing the issue itself, because with systematic racism, it's deeply rooted. It's not really going to change by, starting these new programs or giving money to fund certain groups of people. It really starts from the mindset of everyone. And so I can understand why they feel like it's not enough. It's almost a cop out, not actively trying to help the community, but rather just shelling out money,
Yeah.
especially because they can and they have that money. And so I think that's why they could have kind of felt cheated.
Right, right. Sel, how much is this on the shoulders of NBA owners? Because NBA owners are billionaires who mostly
Yeah,
happen to be Caucasian American, who
yeah.
have unbelievable ties to politicians, to government, because they're
Yeah.
business leaders. Like, how much is this on their shoulder? Is their responsibility to maybe convince their connections and ties to, hey, we gotta do something, like our players are speaking already.
They definitely have a huge responsibility, and it's not an easy one. I think a lot of the times that they face criticism for not speaking out, people don't realize the gravity of the position they're in. Again, it's still a business, and while in a perfect world, people wouldn't, allow like greed and status to come in the way of seeking something better. A lot of the times it boils down to that. But they definitely do they definitely do have a bigger responsibility. And but the thing is, if they do it for the wrong reasons, meaning if they do it so that they don't come under fire,
Yeah.
if they do it just to avoid the criticism,
Yeah.
if they do it to not upset their players, because obviously the players will probably bring in the money, right? Then it won't be sustainable. It's not genuine, and it's definitely not going to make sustainable change, right?
Right.
And so at the end, it really comes down to them wanting to make that change, not just to
Right.
please people, but because they themselves see that it's necessary.
You said it. Genuine and sincere action leads to permanent and lasting change, right? That's it. Going on to reason number 4 now, Sel. Okay. So basketball, in its long history, the NBA to be specific now, it has had a history of activism that's very much present in the league. Back in the 70s, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was very outspoken about, civil rights. Him, alongside guys like Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, they were very vocal back during the civil rights movement. And okay, I don't know if you've watched the movie, what's this, the Green Book.
No, I'm not familiar.
Anyway, it's a movie based on the 60s, essentially civil rights movement. So I think a part there mentions about how there was this hotel manager who was saying that, oh, when the Boston Celtics were, over here in our hotel, we didn't allow their N word of a center named Bill Russell to stay with the white folk over here. So, and Bill Russell, back in this was publicized in 1961. He chose to sit out of a game because of yun nga, parang he felt that he wasn't welcome at all inside the arena. But like, isn't this so unfortunate that African American athletes, after 50 long years from the 1960s, they're still fighting for the same thing. Parang nothing has changed.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to grasp. It's hard to even think that a fellow Wallers could be treated that way, because when again, once you step on the court, they're your teammate or your competitor, and that's really how you should see them. They're hardworking, they're talented, and that's how you should be characterizing them, not by the color of their skin.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's been going on for so long, and some days feel better than others, in the sense that I feel like some days there seems to be more progress, but then days later they regress like 5 steps. It's like 1 step forward, 5 steps backwards. And for them to still be feeling that way, especially as you said that now NBA is like predominantly made up of African American players. It's like, when will fans and supporters get the message?
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, so one thing different though from 50 years ago. Again, players today have the bubble, they have social media, they have all the means to communicate about social issues. Pero one thing still remains very, very true. And Doc Rivers in an interview said it best: your talent is your power. I repeat, your talent is your power. Sel, coming from your experience, how does this resonate with you?
I think it's very true. Obviously, the more talent you have, the more that you're respected. For some reason, people will listen to you more, and I think there's credibility to that. But at the same time, like, I want to stress that people who aren't seen as, let's say, talented as those star players per se, they also do have the right to speak up, and their
Yeah.
voices are just as powerful. I think while it's okay to idolize these players like LeBron, those big names, I think what every other player who's experienced the same thing has just as much right to speak up.
Yes.
But I think they wouldn't necessarily have gotten there had they not made it onto the big stage. And I think that's really the point that Doc Rivers was getting at, specifically targeted to them, because had it been, a different scenario, anyone could have spoken out. But for them, who have had to gone through those prejudices, they could only speak up once they got to the NBA. So I think
Yes.
that's why he's encouraging people to use their talent to speak up.
Definitely, definitely. So I don't know if you're following the player vlogs that are, the inside the bubble vlogs. I'm personally, I became a fan of Matisse Tybul ever since his vlogs came up. So I think in one episode, the Sixers were with their PR manager. So yeah, this was the height of the George Floyd incident, and they were discussing on what can we do as a team, to speak out and make a unified team statement. As the Philadelphia 76ers, we support the BLM movement and whatnot. But in that team meeting, so Fibel was there, Tobias Harris was there, Kylo Quinn was there, and they were trying to brainstorm like what could be our slogan, what could be our our team mantra. And then they were going to settle. I think they were going to settle on the quote, "Educate yourself," because again, as athletes, damn, you have how many millions of Twitter followers? You have how many millions of Instagram followers? And sometimes those people listen to you more just because you're an athlete, more than the actual news. Like, so they see you as a really, really important figure in society, and diba, like how important is it for athletes not only to use that voice, but again to know where they're coming from before they speak out?
I think it's so important. Anything you say can unfortunately make or break you,
Yeah.
and with the rise of fake news or news that's completely misinformed, it could also be very dangerous. And you have to know what, to a sense, you have to know what you're talking about. It and as much as you want to voice out your opinion, um, you also have to be careful because opinions aren't necessarily always correct. There has to be some research done. What you feel isn't necessarily what's true. And again, with so many people following them, there are people who take the word of their favorite athlete without even taking the time to cross check it or see if it's actually credible. They'll take it and believe it. And so that's why it really starts with educating yourself and then educating the people who follow you. And I think that's definitely the easiest step that someone can take.
True, true. And again, educate, especially now, diba? We're in a fast information driven world. That's why, again, knowing what's true, knowing what's actually factual, diba, it goes a long way in today's society.
Yeah.
All right, so Sel, let's try to bring things, to a bit more local context now. So I texted you about this like a couple of days ago. Finally, Philippine Hoops now has a league. No, no, not just any league. A pro league for girl hoopers such as yourself. And Sel, I gotta ask you, first reaction from the news.
I think my initial reaction was like, it's about time. I, I I I think that was pretty much every female baller's reactions. Like, finally, we're getting recognized, and you know, it finally gives a space for female athletes to dream bigger and aim higher.
Hmm.
A lot of the times after college, those female ballers who do want to pursue it, their only option is to stop or to go abroad. Or sorry, join the national team. But
Yeah.
obviously, it's a very exclusive pool because it's a very select pool. And so, by opening a league here, we now have a chance to develop our own talent, and hopefully that will make us more competitive, and it will show the rest of the region and the rest of the world that we're strong competitors, not just in the men's category but also the women's category.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
among you girls, no, and sa Lady Eagles, were you like, hey, I'm thinking about applying for the draft come October. How is the reaction like?
I think, well, for the current team, I think we've been really just focusing on new app, but um I know the other girls, I'm sure they'll definitely want to try out. We had so many players, very talented players that just graduated,
Hmm.
and I'm sure they'd be a welcome addition to any team in the WNBL. And I'm really excited for the opportunities for them, and also the other ladies from different UAP schools. As much as we are competitors on the court, I also do want to see them thrive.
Of course.
There are so many times that I'm watching the competing teams, and I have to kind of hold myself back to make sure I don't react too much. But you have to respect talent, and there are so many players that finally getting the chance to show what they got.
But for our girls in blue, I've been reading lots of articles saying that Miss Kat Goitingco is one of the hottest prospects daw ng WNBL. Okay, so we'll wait and see on her decision. But I want to key in on this now, Sel. So WNBL Executive Vice President Rose Montreal. So in an interview, she was saying that this league, she hopes to put more premium on showcasing the skill of of women players more than the looks of the women players. Now, okay, nothing wrong with being complimented if you're an attractive girl, if you're a good-looking girl. That's God's gift to you, okay? But again, this is not a beauty pageant. This is a basketball league, right? So, like, what's your take on that? Parang okay, you don't watch me for how I look, di ba? Of course, but if you're pretty, then good for you, girl. but it's again, it's a basketball league, and basketball should be the show, di ba, of that league.
I think it's because as girls we've already been kind of fit into those categories, and we've always been defined by looks, and so to put it in the space where we're just trying to compete and we're trying to do something that we love is kind of it's I wouldn't say, I don't think it's degrading, but it kind of takes away from the experience and what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve being recognized in something other than how we look. And so to bring that into the court, it's like it has space some other place, but not here, because we're really just trying to play.
Definitely. And okay, so if ever the Lady Eagles' current captain, Selina De Dios, would decide on apply, I think parang the application process begins in October. So the draft application process begins in October. So Sel, I just wanna bring it out there. No, I know a guy who's like a kuya to you, like a big brother to you. He can make the perfect agent for you. He can he can prop you up to the media. He can get you endorsement deals. I think just you know how to contact him. All he asks is 10% of your monthly salary, and he would be very, very happy to to promote his honorary kid sister out there. So, but again, I mean, if you do decide to,
for sure, don't worry.
All right, so again, that wraps up our long talk on empowerment and standing up for what's right. And thank you again, SWD Selina De Dios, team captain of our Ateneo Lady Eagles, for taking the time out to chat with us over here. Lucelle, I know you've been very busy over the past few weeks, and you got school coming up. So once again, I want to thank you so much, for again always sharing your great insights.
Yeah, of course, it's also my pleasure. It's great to have these kinds of conversations, because I think now it's really the time for it. So I want to thank you as well.
Thank you. All right, so draft October. Okay, agent calling. Okay, but Sel, before we end, any greeting, shout outs you want to give teammates? I don't know, friends.
I'll just shout out my teammates. I haven't seen them since March, and school was suspended, and it's been tough hanging out with them virtually. But I just wanna shout them out, because they've been doing their part to stay fit, stay healthy, and getting ready for UAP. Hopefully, let's hope.
All right, and by November, folks, at number 5 for your Manila Malditas, Selina De Dios. We'll see. Okay. Anyway, Sel, thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
All right. See
Bye.
you.
Welcome to the Rundown, where we take you right into the action with the latest sports news, updates, game previews, breakdown, and analysis in, around, across, and beyond the Ateneo. And now, let's get ready to